Hello and welcome to this chapter, Why We Travel, written by Pico Iyer, easily considered one of the most celebrated writers of Indian origin. लेकिन शुरू करने से पहले मैं आपको एक बात साफ बता देता हूं that this along with the new dress by Virginia Woolf are easily the most tough chapters that are part of your Yuvakbharati. इसको समझने में और रिसर्च करने में, नोट्स बनाने में, क्वेश्चन आंसर्स लिखने में मेरे को 4 दिन लगे हैं. Okay, so it is a complex piece of writing and I will try to make it as simple for you students to understand the broad theme because आपको questions largely broad theme पे मिलेंगे. इसके साथ साथ in the notes as well as in the question answers I have tried to cover most of the portions which can be asked as question and answers which you need to understand. And also, if you go through this video carefully, you will be able to understand. Let's see whether I want to do it in one part or 2 parts. Okay, so known as Pico Iyer, Siddharth Pico Raghavan Iyer, British-born American essayist and novelist known for his travel writing. Please read the box which is there because I say आपको author के बारे में, as I always say, it gives you a good idea. Also, this particular essay, more than this, let me explain to you what this essay is all about. And I've written it in the notes also. It basically explores the motivation and the reasons why all of us travel, right? The idea of travel is often not just to go and visit a new place, just to see a monument, see a historical place. No, it is also the experience. The important word out here is experience, the whole experience and the learning you have. That is what makes it more of an enriching kind of an experience. Okay, so Pico Iyer also believes that it kind of transforms you, it also enriches you. That is what he believes travel does. It makes you more aware कि आपको ज्यादा जानकारी मिलती है. You kind of understand yourself in the overall larger context of the world कि आपकी position क्या है पूरी दुनिया के अंदर, and it kind of develops a connection between you and the rest of the world, between you and the rest of the human beings, right? So it's not just, as I said, moving from one place to another, but also about seeking change कि हमारे अंदर भी कुछ बदलाव होना चाहिए. Like if you go to a place which you have heard a lot about, but when you go, you discover that it is much more than what you had heard or read about. So that is something very important. Please go through the note that I have put in the notes. It is written in good language, जिसको कि आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं अपने answers में भी. Okay. Now let's get started with the chapter. It's an essay essentially. We travel initially to lose ourselves and we travel next to find ourselves. Now this is, you see how he has used words. He says first we travel to lose ourselves, अपने आप को खोने के लिए, और उसके बाद अपने आप को पाने के लिए. Now this particular quote के बारे में मैंने elaborately लिखा है आपके notes में भी, that it's basically a comment on the transformation that travel can do to you. You want to take a break, 10 दिन की छुट्टियां हैं, you want to go somewhere and what do you say, मैं just इस दुनिया को छोड़ के, ये बुक्स वगैरह को छोड़ के, academics की दुनिया को छोड़ के, I just want to get lost in that world, right? So your first intention, your first aim is to lose yourself. कि मेरे को, I don't have any connection with the world that I am a part of on a regular basis. But as you go there, you realize that you also find yourself. You understand this dichotomy that Pico Iyer is talking about. So it is a comment on the transformation that you as a traveler undergo. So when we first travel, we are always motivated by a desire कि, we kind of escape from our usual life, रोज की दुनिया, रोज की routine से we find an escape. But as we kind of travel more and more, we learn about ourselves and our place in the entire universe. इसका actual meaning, if you get a question and and you are asked to explain, so basically, and I am not asking you to kind of go into great depth, but if you understand it, you'll find it easier to put it even for a 2 marks or 3 marks question. You'll be able to explain it better. That when we arrive first in a new place, we are often disoriented. You go to a new place, you don't know where what is. Let's say a hill station, you don't know kaise jana hai, you get lost sometimes and all that, right? Sometimes you go to a foreign country, you don't know the language. You go to France, you go to Spain, you will not know the language. You go to any of the Latin American countries, you will not, unless you know Spanish, right? So it kind of, when you are all alone and you feel lost, it can be a disorienting feeling कि अरे मैं तो खो गया, लेकिन also it can be a very liberating feeling कि यहाँ पर मुझे कोई नहीं जानता है and I am on my own, right? But you take time to kind of adjust to a new place and learn about the culture, learn about the geography of that place. And that's the process of learning, self-learning, self-discovery, that you learn a few things. Oh, even if I don't know Spanish, I can manage in a country like Spain, right? So you kind of discover a few things over a period of time. Then it says we travel to open our hearts and eyes and learn more about the world than our newspapers will accommodate. The newspapers would have told you X, Y, Z things about a particular place. But when you go there, you actually discover a whole lot of new things. We travel to bring what little we can in our ignorance and knowledge to those parts of the globe whose riches are differently dispersed. Now, in that country, it's quite possible that that is a poorer country than India, right? So about ignorance and riches, what is he saying? That travel is like a two-way street, right? It is an opportunity for us to learn and grow because of the experiences that we get there. But it is also an opportunity to give back to those places that we visit. For example, just to give an example, and I put these examples in the notes also, I'm an educator. I go to a place, I teach some children in that particular village. Or if I'm a doctor, or let's say I'm an engineer, I go and help them construct a bridge out there, right? So what am I doing is that I realize that the riches are differently dispersed. इस गांव के पास एक ब्रिज नहीं है, इस गांव में ज्यादातर बच्चे स्कूल को नहीं जाते हैं, तो मैं उनकी मदद कर सकता हूं. I can help them start a village newspaper, right? So I can do different things and I can give something to that place, right? So what it teaches you to become more compassionate travelers, to become more understanding citizens of this world, because then you kind of make a bridge between different cultures, because every region is not equally endowed with natural talent, natural resources, everything, right? Opportunities. And we travel in essence to become young fools again, to slow time down and get taken in and fall in love once more, because that's the magic of travel. You go to a new place, you fall in love with the whole experience. You don't have to fall in love with anyone. You can just fall in love with the experience and your own place in that experience, right? So you almost feel you can do foolish things which you may not normally do in your place where you are staying in. There you can do things because nobody knows you, so you can do tomfoolery, you can do anything, right? The beauty of this whole process was best described perhaps before people even took to frequent flying by George Santayana in his lapidary essay. Lapidary, the word, the left side pe iska meaning bhi likha hua hai. It essentially means, in this case, it means elegant and concise, very brief, and in very, in a very clear-cut manner, he has spoken in the essay called The Philosophy of Travel. We need sometimes to escape into open solitude. Solitude is where there is complete quiet, as it says, a lonely or an uninhabited place. Into aimlessness, into the moral holiday of running some pure hazard in order to sharpen the edge of life, to taste hardship, and to be compelled to work desperately for a moment at no matter what. Now, what does this quote essentially mean? So it is a comment on the importance of stepping out of your comfort zone. हम सबका एक कंफर्ट जोन होता है जिसमें कि हमको रहने की आदत हो जाती है. We are comfortable in that space. So if you want to challenge yourself, you need to step out of your comfort zone, right? So that's what he is arguing, because only then you can challenge yourself. He argues that if you do that, you can sharpen the edge of life, you can taste hardship. I read a beautiful quote by Swami Vivekananda today, that if any particular day you don't face any problems, it means that you're walking on the wrong path. ओके आपका बेसिक रूट ही गलत है अगर आपको कोई मुश्किलों का सामना नहीं करना पड़ता हर दिन. Right? So what Santayana is suggesting is that the escape to open solitudes that he is talking about, escape to open solitudes and the aimlessness. Aimlessness means, koi intention nahi hai, uska koi aim nahi hai, right? You just go out for a walk and you keep walking, just soaking in whatever sights you see, right? You're just experiencing it. And that, in a sense, is true freedom. You may face some hardships on the way because you are going without any kind of homework. You're stepping out of your comfort zone, right? So it also suggests that we should embrace the moral holiday of running some hazard, that you kind of you say that, okay, let me embrace and let me experience whatever happens to me. So that is what you need to do. So Santayana is arguing that these experiences can help us understand ourselves better, and they can also develop your own character. You can develop the resilience, the resistance कि हम ऐसी मुश्किल अगर आपको किसी मुसीबत का सामना करना पड़े, so how will you face that hurdle? How will you face that challenge? That is what it actually teaches you, and therefore you, by doing that, you also develop a deeper appreciation for the simple joys and simple things in life, right? Let me say this again, this essay is a little profound and vague, so आपको basic themes का मतलब समझ में आ जाना चाहिए. That should be good enough. Now he's talking about the difference between travel and travail. Okay, pronunciation में थोड़ा सा अलग है. Travel तो हम जानते हैं यात्रा, travail मतलब मुसीबतें, any kind of hurdles, any kind of problems that you this thing. So travel allows you a new perspective and the feel and the need to kind of feel and experience something at the same time. Travel in that sense guides us towards a better balance of wisdom and compassion, of seeing the world clearly and yet feeling it truly, for seeing without feeling. Now this is important. He is saying seeing, अगर आप किसी चीज को देख रहे हैं लेकिन उसका experience नहीं कर रहे हैं, so that means that you are uncaring, कि आपको उसकी परवाह नहीं है, that you are not caring for what you are seeing. Similarly, while feeling without seeing can be blind. If you just feel something, but if you are not able to see it, that means you are blind. So he says, yet for me, the first great joy of traveling is simply the luxury of leaving all my beliefs and certainties at home. जो मुझे मालूम था कि ये ऐसा होगा, ये जगह पे ऐसी होगी, यहाँ पर बहुत सारे ब्रोकर मिलेंगे, बहुत सारे टाउट्स मिलेंगे, उनको अवॉइड कर, यहाँ पर गंदगी होगी. You go with a certain belief in your system, in your mind, and then the best way is to leave all that behind, is what Pico Iyer is saying, and seeing everything I thought I knew in a different light and from a crooked angle. यानी कि एक अलग नजरिए से किसी भी चीज को देखो. You may have read about it, but you leave all that at home. मैं उसकी परवाह नहीं कर रहा हूं. What I have seen, thought कि okay, Wagah border will be like this. I've seen it in YouTube, on YouTube. I've seen it in photographs. I've heard a lot about it from my friends, but I leave all that behind. I go there and look at it with a fresh light so that it will be my experience. Understood? It will be, I own it. It will be my experience instead of kind of borrowing it from someone. Oh, yeah, उसने ये कहा था, हाँ, वो भी ऐसे हुआ. So then what is your process of discovery? Though it is fashionable nowadays to draw a distinction between the tourist and the traveler, perhaps the real distinction lies between those who leave their assumptions at home and those who don't. Okay, so now he's talking about the difference between the tourist and the traveler. Most of us generally try to use it almost, as synonyms, that, tourist and traveler means the same thing, but he's making a subtle distinction between the word tourist and the word traveler. So he says, tourists are often looking for an escape from their everyday life. कि मेरी जिंदगी बहुत ही बोरिंग है, मेरे को उससे एक आजादी चाहिए, right? I want to escape from that life. But still they carry their assumptions and therefore they feel disappointed, or they may be disappointed. But that if the things are not the same as they are at home, कि ओ मेरे घर में तो इतना बढ़िया था, यहाँ देखो बहुत ही कम है, मेरे घर पे तो गर्म पानी आता था, यहाँ पे देखो ठंडा ठंडा पानी आ रहा है, if you carry those kind of problems. Travelers, on the other hand, are more interested in experiencing new cultures and the ways of life. They may be frustrated if they find everything in the same as other places, that, oh, I visited that place, this place is also the same. Then they may feel disappointed because they are actually looking for and seeking new experiences. So ideally speaking, you should look to be a traveler and not a tourist. You should not look to be a tourist, but a traveler, and going with an open mind to any place and thereby enjoying that new experience. But for the rest of us, this sovereign means something which is absolutely at the top, supreme. Freedom of traveling comes from the fact that it whirls you around and turns you upside down and stands everything you took for granted on its head. That is, it takes you by surprise. If a diploma can famously be a passport to a journey through hard realism, a passport can be a diploma for a crash course in cultural relativism. Now, what is he's essentially saying? Now, the difference between diploma and the passport line. So basically, he's saying that it is a reflection on the educational value of travel. कि उससे आपको क्या सीखने को मिलता है. He's suggesting, Iyer is suggesting that travel can teach you just as much, if not more, than a formal education. कि आप यात्रा करके भी एक नई जगह पर जाकर भी, if you go to a new place, you can also learn a lot instead of just banking on formal education from a textbook, right? So what he is saying is that a diploma can be just like a diploma can be a passport to a journey. That through a diploma you can get a passport and you can go on a journey. A passport, that is through traveling, also you can actually learn a lot. When you are exposed to new cultures, and it can help us in developing a deeper understanding of the world around us, communication skills, problem solving skills, different kinds of experience. Like for example, I must tell you, for example, when you go to many foreign countries, one of the things that they will always tell you is that, be careful about the downtown area because you can get mugged. Don't carry your passport around. Don't carry your important documents with you because you can be robbed at knife point or gun point. It can happen. I know it for a fact that when many years ago, when I had gone to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, some of our co-travelers got robbed. So in fact, not even downtown, but outside the hotel itself. So you have to be extremely careful about these things. So everything, what I'm trying to say is that everything is a learning kind of an experience. And the first lesson we learn on the road, whether we like it or not, is how provisional and provincial are the things we imagine to be universal. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that provisional means something which is temporary, not final. Provisional means temporary. Okay. And provincial is basically talking about a narrow kind of a mindset, that you think only about in a particular kind of an environment and not in the larger scheme of things. So what he's trying to say is that that our beliefs, जो भी हम सोचते हैं, हमारे जितने भी ideas, ख्यालात हमारे दिमाग में हैं, they are shaped by our own experiences, whatever we experience, and therefore there is no universal truth. My truth based on my traveling could be different from your truth based on your traveling. You may have gone to some other places, or you may have limited travel. I may be widely traveled, gone to different kinds of places. So my experience and my perspective and my truth may be very different from what is your truth. Okay, so that's why I'm saying that it is all very temporary and it is also very provincial. It's a very narrow outlook. If I have not traveled much, my outlook will be very narrow. If I have not gone outside my state or my city, I will think this is the world. I would imagine that Washington, New York, or Paris also will be like this. But only when I go to a Paris, I will imagine that, oh, this is how the French live. This is how the Chinese live in Beijing. So you will get an exposure to different kinds of ways of life and exposure, and that will make it universal. But otherwise, it will be remaining extremely narrow and provincial. We travel then in part just to shake up our complacencies. Complacencies means, being very satisfied with oneself, very complacent kind of an outlook. By seeing all the moral and political urgencies, the life and death dilemmas that we seldom have to face at home. So he says that we travel to kind of, so that we don't feel very satisfied, मैं इसी में खुश हूं. You want to explore new things because you want to challenge yourself, your own way of thinking, your own mindset. By seeing all the moral and political urgencies, the life and death dilemmas that we seldom have to face at home, because different people have different kinds of challenges, जिसके बारे में you may not even come to know if you don't step out of home and travel. And we travel to fill in the gaps left by tomorrow's headlines. What does this mean? He's saying that it helps us to better understand the world by exposing us to new cultures, new perspectives. When you drive down the streets of Port-au-Prince, for example, when there is almost no paving, your notions of the internet and a one world order grow usefully revised. So what is he's taking the example of Port-au-Prince. So basically saying that seeing the poverty and the hardship firsthand, it helps us understand कि in this kind of developing country, these are the challenges that they face, which otherwise in our developed country, we may not even come to know. आज की दुनिया में, we all use a lot of the Google Pay and Paytm. Many developed countries also don't have this. You have to always use a credit card or use cash, right? So UPI kind of convenience, even they don't know. So when you go out of India and you realize, you realize that UPI is such a convenience. These guys don't have it. So it kind of exposes you to different kind of inadequacies that exist in different other parts of the world. Travel is the best way we have of rescuing the humanity of places and saving them from abstraction and ideology. Meaning to say that when we travel to new places, we see them more than, we don't see them just as abstract, means something very vague, something which is not very clear. We don't see them as abstract concepts or political ideologies. We see them as real places who have their own stories and experiences. Like for instance, like I have traveled a lot in rural India. So when you go to rural India, you realize that, their outlook, their way of thinking, their ideologies, their political thinking is all very different from people in the cities. Otherwise, if you don't step out of the city that you live in, you will think, कि गांव वाले भी ऐसे ही सोचते होंगे, लेकिन गांव वाले ऐसा नहीं सोचते हैं. Their thinking is based because they have not traveled outside their village. So their thinking is very, very provincial and narrow in their outlook, but they have their own stories. So for you to understand that world, you need to travel, interact, and understand them better. So basically to say that you need to have empathy. ऐसा नहीं है कि तुम सही हो, वो गलत है, या वो सही है, तुम गलत हो. No one is right and wrong. No, it's not about black and white, but being able to understand why that person is thinking the way he does. Okay. And in the process, we also get saved from abstraction ourselves and come to see how much we can bring to the places we visit and how much we can become a kind of carrier pigeon. He says, by interacting with other people, we kind of, we are no, abstraction means we are no longer unclear. There is clarity in our mind. This is why this particular villager in this particular village in, let's say, Nagpur district, things like that. And how much we can become a carrier pigeon means that, we can become some kind of a messenger, okay, of transporting back and forth what every culture needs. We can be some kind of a bridge. That is why I find that I always take Michael Jordan posters. Michael Jordan, as you know, basketball player, to Kyoto in Japan and bring woven ikebana baskets back to California. Ikebana is a flower arrangement, as you may be aware, the Japanese flower arrangement. But more significantly, we carry values and beliefs and news to the places we go. And in many parts of the world, we become the walking video screens and living newspapers. That is, we become, because we are transporting a part. Oh, I come from India. I go to another country and I share with them what I know, right? So we become almost like living newspapers and video screens, because we are transmitting, okay, this is what happened. You don't know, this is what happened. I was there when it happened, right? So you almost become like a walking video screen. The only channels that can take people out of the censored limits of their homelands. Now, this cannot be censored. I go to and tell something somewhere in another country or even in another state of India. That cannot be censored, right? In closed or impoverished places like Pagan or Lhasa or Havana, We are the eyes and ears of the people we meet, their only contact with the world outside, and very often the closest, quite literally, they will ever come to Michael Jackson or Bill Clinton. That, like, he's talking from the point of view of an American, that when I go to places like Pagan and or Lhasa or Havana, Havana is in Cuba. I mean, they see the American people, and that's the closest they will come to a Bill Clinton or a Michael Jackson, right? So, it's almost like they will never be able to beat a Michael Jackson or a Bill Clinton. Michael Jackson is abhi वैसे भी मुलाकात नहीं हो पाएगी. But, that's their contact with the world of America, right? Not the least of the challenges of travel, therefore, is learning how to import and export dreams with tenderness. So you are kind of, what a beautiful line, you are kind of, sharing dreams, dreams of tenderness. Tenderness means with a lot of fragility, with a lot of tenderness, with softness. You are kind of, exchanging dreams. उनकी दुनिया के बारे में तुम जानोगे, तुम्हारी दुनिया के बारे में वो जानेंगे. By now, all of us have heard too often the old Proust line. Proust was a French novelist, about how the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeing new places, but in seeing with new eyes. So it's an important kind of a line. Okay, what he's saying is that, take a minute, huh? I've written it as a question and answer. Yeah. So he's saying that the most rewarding experience is not just about the physical travel, but about changing our perspective and seeing the world with new eyes. एक नई नजर से तुम दुनिया को देखो. Okay, so he says that when we travel to new places, we are exposed to new cultures, perspectives, the way they live, etc. Very simple things. Like, I remember being exposed to Mexican rice, which is bluish color rice, right? Now, it's unimaginable that you would find blue color rice being eaten in any part of India, right? At least I don't know of. For me, it was a new thing. So you get exposed to different kinds of, even culinary skills, the way they cook, the way they consume, the way they eat, the way they drink, very different from how you and I would be used to. This can help us to challenge our assumptions, expand our horizons, and develop a deeper understanding. So true travel that Proust is talking about essentially means opening ourselves to new experience. That you have to be mentally open ki I'm willing to embrace and understand the different kind of cultures, about how a different human being in a different country, in a different land, is living his or her life. So he says that's the real voyage of discovery. That is what discovery is all about. Yet one of the subtler means, something which is in a very subtle manner, they say, which is not very loud, and it's slightly more difficult to understand or grasp. Beauties of travel is that it enables you to bring new eyes to the people you encounter. Just like you are seeing things in a new perspective, even they will be able to see things in a new light. Thus, even as holidays help you appreciate your own home more, "Hey, mera ghar acha tha, ghar, no place like home." When you go home and you live from hotel to hotel, you realize, ghar aa jao, mera bistar pe so, that is the best place in the world, right? Not least by seeing it through a distant admirer's eyes, they help you bring newly appreciative distant eyes to the places you visit. That is, you also appreciate the places that you visit. You can teach them what they have to celebrate as much you celebrate what they have to teach. So it is a collaboration. This, I think, is how tourism, which so obviously destroys culture, can also resuscitate and revive them. That tourism ke bare mein hamesha gali padti hai ki, tourism is killing local cultures. Tourism is destroying the fragility of mountains and hills and rivers, etc. But it can also revive ties, wherein people from place A go to place B and understand each other better. How it has created new traditional dances in Bali and caused craftsmen in India to pay new attention to their work. So that's how this kind of thing happens across countries, across continents. This travel spins us around in two ways at once. It shows us the sights and values and issues that we might ordinarily ignore. So normally, unless we travel, we'll never know that this is how it is in different parts of the country or the world, right? But it also and more deeply shows us all the parts of ourselves that might otherwise grow rusty. If you don't travel, we'll feel rusty, we will, ek tarah se jung pad jayega. That's what he's trying to say. For in traveling to a truly foreign place, we inevitably travel to moods and states of mind and hidden inward passages that we would otherwise seldom have cause to visit. That is, again, talking about the new exposure to different kinds of places. On the most basic level, when I'm in Tibet, though not a real Buddhist, I spend days on end in temples listening to the chants of sutras. So he's talking about his own visit to temples and in Tibet. He says, I go to Iceland to visit the lunar spaces within me, and in the uncanny quietude and emptiness of that vast and treeless world to tap parts of myself generally obscured by chatter and routine. So he's almost like, saying that when I go to Iceland, I'm almost like meditating. I'm kind of discovering myself. Like, for instance, earlier this year, it's gone and spent, we were invited to visit the Isha ashram in near Coimbatore. So, it's a different kind of an environment and world out there. So you kind of experience, you try and understand what is it that brings people from all over the world to Isha, undergoing courses which last about 8 months, 9 months, volunteering work, without drawing any salary. What is it that keeps them going? So you kind of understand different minds, different cultures, different viewpoints, different perspectives, and that is what traveling is all about. The essence of traveling is that. Okay, I'm giving my own examples to help you understand this in a better light, in an easier light. We travel then in search of both self and anonymity, and of course in finding the one we apprehend the other. That is, हम खुद को भी ढूंढने की कोशिश करते हैं जिसके बारे में कुछ मालूम भी नहीं हो. Anonymity means that, which is does not have an identity. उसको भी जानने की कोशिश करते हैं. Abroad we are wonderfully free of caste and job and standing. When we go abroad, no one talks about, कि what's your caste, what is it that you do, right? Society में तुम्हारी अहमियत क्या है, what is your standing in society, no one talks about. We are as Hazlitt, again an English essayist, puts it, just the gentleman in the parlor. We are like, nobody knows us. That's why film stars or cricketers, etc., prefer to holiday abroad, because no one knows them. They can actually go out for morning and evening walk without being mobbed for selfies, right? हालांकि आजकल इंडियन सब जगह हैं, फिर भी हो जाता है. Anyway, but it still will not be the same as in India. And people cannot put a name or tag to us. And precisely because we are clarified in this way and freed of inessential labels, we have the opportunity to come into contact with more essential parts of ourselves, right? So while we are like, it's almost like incognito. वो YouTube में होता है ना, you can search incognito, because if your identity is not known, you will get a better idea about what the world is like, right? But when you are known, you will not be able to discover it correctly. So when you go incognito, when nobody knows you, is when you may actually be able to get in contact with more essential. You may be able to discover yourself better when कि तुम कुछ नहीं हो. You're just a face in that crowd, right? You're just moving around, nobody knows you. It's a very different state of being. There is no identity that you are going anywhere with. Abroad is the place where we stay up late, follow impulse, and find ourselves as wide open as when we are in love. So he says, we can do whatever we want to do. We can get up at any time, stay home, stay till late, or go to bed early, do whatever we want to do. We live without a past or a future. There is no past or future. We are just there, living in that moment, enjoying that particular point in time for a moment at least, and we are ourselves up for grabs and open interpretation, and the world around can interpret. They can look at you and say that, oh, I think he's an Indian, right? Oh, he's brown skinned, I think he looks Indian. We even may become mysterious to others at first, and sometimes to ourselves, as no less a dignitary than Oliver Cromwell once noted, a man never goes so far as when he doesn't know where he's going. Now, what does this quote essentially mean? So he's saying that when we have no idea where we are going, we are open to new experiences and more likely to discover things that we would not have found otherwise. So basically saying that, let's not be limited by our own kind of state of mind or expectations, and allow the mind to explore and discover new things. So when we travel without a specific destination in mind, that's what he's saying. A man never goes so far as when he does not know where he's going. कि जब उसको मालूम नहीं होता है कि कहीं पे कहां पे जा रहा है, he may actually end up traveling a long distance. Okay, he may meet new people, learn about new cultures, and experience new things. So basically, he's trying to say that life is almost like a journey, and sometimes the most important thing is not the destination but the journey itself. It sounds so much like me. Like I always say, we are all very bothered about मेरे को final exam में इतने marks चाहिए. But if you keep bothering about that, if you keep worrying about that, if you keep feeling anxious about that, you're not enjoying the process, you're not enjoying the journey. The real fun is looking at the milestones which are going. Okay, September exam mein this is my milestone, November exam mein this is my milestone. If you focus on the milestone instead of the destination, you will realize that you are enjoying the journey and the process that much more. The same goes for travel, and that's what Cromwell means by this quote. There are, of course, great dangers to this, as to every kind of freedom, but the great promise of it is that traveling, we are born again. When we travel, it's like a rebirth, because you're discovering yourself all over again. But the great promise of it that we are born again and able to return at moments to a younger and a more open kind of self. I mean, haven't you felt when you go on a holiday, you feel more young because you're gone to a new place, you're discovering the place, and you're discovering through your own reactions, you're discovering yourself. You go on a trek, you have not done it before, you discover that, yeah, okay, my heart can cope with it, my legs can cope with it. Traveling is a way to reverse time to a small extent and make a day last a year or at least 45 hours. And traveling is an easy way of surrounding ourselves, as in childhood, with what we cannot understand. So these are the plus points of traveling. Please make a note of it. Isko book mein yahan par mark kar lo. Okay. Language facilitates this cracking open, for when we go to France, we often migrate to French, and the more childlike, simple and polite that speaking a foreign language educes. Educes is to bring out. Even when I am not speaking pidgin English in Hanoi, okay, that is a Far East, I am simplified in a positive way and concerned not with expressing myself, but simply making sense. That is, you are trying to make that person understand what you're trying to say. Because if you go and get lost in a city like Paris or Madrid or anywhere in China where people don't speak English as the link language, you may find it difficult to kind of correspond and articulate yourself to different people. So there you try to speak in very simple words so that you can get help from the other person. So travel for many of us is a quest for not just the unknown, but the unknowing. I at least travel in search of an innocent I that can return me to a more innocent self. So he's looking for, an uncorrupted Pico Iyer. That I should be more innocent, more curious about the world around me. I tend to believe more abroad than I do at home, which, though treacherous again, can at least help me to extend my vision, and I tend to be more easily excited abroad and even kinder. Okay, so he's just talking about things that you probably are a little more kind when you are abroad. And since no one I meet can place me, no one can fix me in my resume. Resume is another word for resume. Since place me means they cannot identify who I am, I can remake myself for better as well, for of course for worse, if travel is notoriously a cradle for false identity. So I can be better, I can be worse, so I can change my identity, because no one can know that, oh, this is the famous writer Pico Iyer. Crucible means a situation in which people or things are tested, with heat is what is talking. It's more of a things which is used in labs. In this way, travel can be a kind of a monasticism, which again I've written an answer on the move. Monasticism means spirituality. It can be a spiritual kind of an experience. Monasticism comes from the word monks. On the road, we often live more simply, even when staying in a luxury hotel with no more possessions than we can carry and surrendering ourselves to chance. So you are kind of living a more easy life, which you may not be willing to lead at home. At home, you may want all the luxuries, but when you travel abroad, when you travel anywhere, you may be willing to put up with a lot of inconveniences as well. Now, what I'm going to do is to pause here. I'm just feeling very tired because it's also a very exhausting kind of an essay. We will do the rest of the chapter in video part 2. Okay, I hope yahan tak ka puri tarah se samajh mein aa gaya hoga. As I said, it's complicated. Please go through the notes and the question and answers, and I'm sure all your doubts will be taken care of. Thank you very much.